Okay, nice to have you with me today. Thanks for joining in our program today, and we have a good program for us today. So get your cup of coffee and settle down, and let's take the next little segment and introduce our topic to you today on what it's like to live a life within the context of a large family. So we have a guest today, Joan Acomb, who happens to be the mother of a large family, 8 children. So we're going to be talking to her as to what it's like to raise a large family. Most people don't do that. Most people don't have the privilege of living and raising a large family. So we'll get a little insight and perspective from Joan as to what it's like to live in that kind of a context of a large family. Now remember, this is picking it up from our book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. And in this book, you'll have a lot of good stuff, whether you are a large family or a small family, but this is a kind of a handbook of how to handle the issues that occur and develop within the context of a family. So whatever your family situation is and whatever the problems develop, here's a book that will be of help, to you. So, Dr. Teach Me to Parent, glad to have you with me. And let me put this in perspective today, as I generally do, with a little quote. And it will kind of put in perspective what we're going to be talking about and how we're going to approach our topic, today. And here's the quote, what it says. He who first treads a path directs the steps of generations to follow. Now just kind of understand that context, okay? He who walks the path first, he who makes the first footsteps on the path, sets the pace, sets the direction for generations to follow. And that's what parenting is all about. Parenting is setting the pace, putting the direction, setting it forth straight and first in direction. And then the kids follow. And then grandchildren follow. And then great-grandchildren follow. And so on. So that's what parenting is all about. Putting the path down and then others follow. So that's where we are today. We're going to take a look at that relative to Joan Acomb, who's with us as a parent of a large family. So, Joan, welcome to our topic today, and you're going to give us some good insight from your own personal experience. And so you're an expert at raising 8 children. So
Not really.
We want you to think of yourself as an expert, as an expert of large families. Now, we have families out there that are watching that are probably small, and that's a whole different perspective. And hopefully there are some people living today that have a large family and can empathize with you and maybe sympathize with you a little bit as to what it's like to live the life of a large family. So, start out, we have 8 children. What are the ages now? Put it in context for us.
Okay, they go from 42 on up. So there's, 13, 14 years difference. Between, from the youngest to the oldest.
So we have adults now.
We have adults.
We have adult children, so to
Yes,
speak. Maybe
yes.
some of them are still acting like children. I don't know. But, we have adult children. And so we have this kind of age. Now they're adults. And but you're reflecting back on when they were children, obviously, and what it was like, to live in that kind of a context. What do you think was unique about your family? Every family is unique in some way. So what was your kind of hallmark?
Well, of course, there was the size, but not only that, but I think our kids were very interested in life, and they pursued a lot of different activities.
So were you an active
resourceful.
family? Is that what you're saying? Really, it was
Yeah,
a fairly active...
Fairly active family, yes, for sure, yeah.
You think of how you handle that? When you have kids in soccer and all the various sports and music and the school programs and then you have 8 children. How did you keep up with them?
Well, with difficulty, for sure. We were able to make it to all the open houses. We worked hard at that. Sometimes there were several on one evening.
I can imagine, yeah.
So that was with some difficulty, but it was a priority to us. And education was a priority. and they were interested in life. Not so many sport-minded kids. They chose other avenues.
So they were more into music.
We had a couple that made the basketball team, and so that was great. But and music involvement, especially with our oldest. Yeah.
So one of the unique things about your family was education.
Yes.
I mean, you valued that.
Right.
You put a high value on
Right.
that. So therefore, would you say that your kids went on to college and were then educated? I mean, how did that play out?
They it wasn't pursued as are you going to college? It was where are you going?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and they are the ones that pursued it and made the decisions at the end. And several got scholarships, and of course they had monies that they owed, etc.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah,
that's
the
kinda how
average
it
kid
worked.
graduating from college today has a loan of about $25,000.
I think it was
kind of
a little more
average.
than that.
Might have been more than that, but
Quite a bit.
that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
What colleges? What are we
Well,
talking about?
3
Yeah.
went to Northwestern.
Out of Chicago.
Right, and 2 went to UC Davis, and the rest went to Fresno State.
Okay.
And then several went on to graduate school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's quite a different variety of schools. So how did you keep up with that? I mean, it's all the way across the country.
I didn't get to go for graduation. I didn't, because I had kids at home, and so
That's one of the things about a large
lot.
family. There are things you have to kind of give up, don't you?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So
You
I
gotta
didn't
make a
get
choice.
to do a
Yeah.
lot of that. Dwight got to do some of that, and then sometimes we made decisions, like one of them that graduated from Fresno State. Dwight wasn't there because he chose to do another thing with another child. So those things sometimes are kind of hard,
Yeah.
and hard for your children,
Sure.
because
It's hard for them, yeah.
Yeah, they would
that's
like-
an interesting point. I mean, even a small family of 2, 3, 4 children, parents have to make a choice sometimes, and sometimes you have to do things with one child and another time with another child and so on. And again, that was kind of what you and Dwight had to do, is to kind of figure out where you could best spend your time and how it would be best appreciated, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that's kind of how it worked.
So this is the thing about a large family then. There's always choice, which is true for everybody, but there's always this thing you cannot do that you would like to do and should do and would think you ought to do, but you can't.
Right.
And you have to live with that.
And another thing is, some of our kids went to some schools that weren't so wonderful, but we couldn't. We were in that district, and so there was some inter-district transfer, but for the most part, like junior high, they were in some schools that weren't so very great. As I talked with one of my children recently, that person said, well, somehow or other, I was led to believe that I was not very smart. And I thought, what? I mean, I thought all you guys were smart.
Yeah, you're all.
But that was her impression, and she would like to have gone to Edison Computech, where our youngest one did go. But he was a boy, and, I mean, well, why didn't we pursue it? I don't know,
It's one of those things that you just, it was what it was.
Right.
You did what you did, and
Yeah.
you always wonder about the kids who, it's their afterthought about it.
Right.
That must have surprised you, though, to have a kid come to you later on and then say, I went to this school and I was with these kids, and I thought I was not a bright kid. I thought
Yeah.
I was kind of at the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, obviously she wasn't, and she's done great things, so...
But just that
Yeah.
self-perception.
Right.
That's true with kids, and that's one of the jobs that parents have to do, with no matter what size the family is to help children get an accurate perception of themselves. And that's hard to do. Did you have that with other kids, too? I mean, to help them all see themselves as unique I mean, that's kind of, you have 8 children who are different from each other,
Yeah.
and they're all unique. How do you help them think that through?
Right. It's with difficulty.
Yeah, I'm sure.
With difficulty.
But it's important to do.
Could
You
have
have to
done
do
it better. Could have done it better somehow.
Well, maybe so.
Yeah.
I mean, you do what you can do. Because there's 2 things that's important. One is what a child thinks of themselves. Mm-hmm. But what's more important is what a child thinks other people think of them.
Right, right.
And you have to kind of help the child see that other people think of you as in a very favorable and a very positive way. Other people see you as smart. Other people think of you as capable and competent. Mm-hmm. So accept that.
You're right.
I mean, that's kind of the message that you try to bring to your kids. Mm-hmm. Was that a struggle for all of them, or a struggle for only a couple of them?
I don't know.
We call it self-esteem or self-image or whatever.
I don't know, but there was shyness too. I mean, our kids were more on the shy
Well, that
point.
Yeah, that probably made it more difficult for them to get
Yes,
that concept
right.
of self-image, because
Right.
you get that in a social context, you see.
Yes,
So if
yes.
you're shy, then you don't get into the social world as much, so you don't get that feedback, or you don't learn what other people think of you. Mm-hmm. You withdraw from that.
Yeah.
And it's a very important behavioral skill. As parents, this is our job, is to help children get into a social world, a good one, a positive one, that will give them the positive message that they are positive people, they're good people.
Right.
And that's, sometimes you do that as a parent and it goes easily, and sometimes it's hard to get those connections.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think also the tendency when you have a large family is you kind of can group them.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I didn't think about that. So you get 2 or 3 that have a certain ability or skill that are in common, or interest. And then another 2 or 3 over here that have a certain interest in common.
Right.
And you can kind of work with them in small groups. Like a teacher does in the classroom, in small groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things we tried to do, and my husband was great at doing, is like during the summer we didn't have a lot of money, so we weren't able to go on a lot of trips. And so he would say, I want you to think about what you can do. Make out a list of what you want to learn and do this summer. So we had some interesting things that people did pursue, and one person made a quilt, and I had it on my bed for years, but it finally wore out and I had to throw it out. But it was a wonderful gift of something that, and it was a him that did it, and he did a great job. Another one decided, it was before computers so much, and she wanted to learn how to type, and she did quite well with that.
It was a summer project.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of how that worked.
It's kind of interesting when you think of a family as giving them choices. Giving them an opportunity. Okay, we have a summer, that's an opportunity. Now, well, how would you like to make it worthwhile?
Right.
And make it work well for you.
Right.
And give them the choice of what they do. And your kids were active. They were all skilled. They all got involved in things.
And I think I probably gave more freedom to kids then than you would now. Like, one of my sons was very, very interested in cameras, and he wanted a camera. And if you sold so much candy, you could get a camera.
Oh, yes,
and
we've all been there.
He was determined he was going to. And so he asked if he could go this one place, and it was by Kmart in southeast Fresno. I said, sure. So he takes his bike and he takes his candy, and I don't know, I think he probably extended the borders somehow, because later on he told me that this woman said, does your mom know where you are? And she probably bought the whole case of them.
We do that for our kids, don't we? We do that for our kids, yeah.
So anyway, he was able to get his camera, and ever since then he was really into photography, etc., and has done some wonderful work and
Beautiful.
reestablishing old pictures of family, etc.
Well, here we are to break. We're going to take a couple minutes of break and watch our sponsors of the program and get involved with our sponsors. There's some great opportunities there in front of you. So go get yourself a cup of coffee or warm your coffee up and come on back in a couple minutes and we'll pick up with Joan Acomb, our guest today, our mother of 8 children. And we'll look at some of the unique aspects of raising a large family. So see you in a few minutes.
Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly, located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair-approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living and secured homes for elderly persons with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-307-0950 and visit GreenGablesCareHome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010 and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net. Come learn how to be a better author at the Christian Writers Seminar at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church on Saturday, February 10th, 2018.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, thanks for coming back and joining us. I hope you got your coffee and you have a little chat here with us and join the conversation. Joan Acomb is my special guest today, a mother of large family. We are talking of 8 children and all their uniquenesses and all their differences and all their challenges. that these kids present to a mother and to a father in the home. And so we're just picking up our conversation of what's it like to be a mother of a large family and what the challenges are to be a mother of a large family. So let's pick it up from where we left off. And I wanted to ask Joan to kind of just reflect on this issue of being fair. You know, kids have this idea that you're not fair as a parent. No matter what you do, no matter what decision you make, no matter how you discipline, no matter how you punish or whatever, you're not fair. You're more fair to one than you are to another. The kids think that way, and kids are like that. So I would imagine when you're dealing with an 8-kid family, the idea of fairness was always bantered about. Everybody had a different definition of what's fair and what's right for her and what's right for him. And was that a struggle for you?
I think so, but I don't think I solved it.
You probably did not solve it.
No.
I don't know if any of us solve it. As we do the best we can.
Did the best we could, and I can't give you any explicit examples now, but it was a hard thing.
That's often hard.
Yes.
And I think sometimes you just, as a parent, you just have to kind of say, I did the right thing in my eyes,
right,
under the circumstances, and we have to stick with it.
Right.
I mean, the main thing is that whatever you decide, you stick with it.
Right.
I mean, being consistent is probably more important than being fair sometimes.
Well, you know the adage from Shakespeare, "Oh, consistency, thou art a jewel."
That's right. That's right. And that shows the persistence and consistency and just predictability and being a promise keeper, so to speak. You know, you keep your promise, you keep your word.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very important. And I think that's probably true of every family, but I'm sure it plays out much more in a large family just because of the difference of opinion.
That's
now,
right.
your kids were verbal, right?
Yes.
I mean, they spoke up for themselves.
Yes. Some more than others.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But they generally would be considered verbal kids?
Yes. We grew up, my husband and I, in an age where children are to be seen and not heard.
Oh.
You know?
Oh, you were one of those.
So, I think a couple of them would like to have been heard more. Mm-hmm. And when I look back on it, that would be absolutely true. And we could have had more, given more opportunity for them to speak about their fairness and their opinion, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that's critical issue. You have to encourage kids to speak out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they say things you don't want to hear, or they say it in a manner that you don't want to hear it. But there's still value in getting them to start the process of speaking out. Mm-hmm. And you have to tolerate some of that over-speaking.
Yes.
Sometimes more aggressive than it is assertive. And you have to tolerate that as they learn to be assertive, as they learn to be outspoken and represent themselves. Mm-hmm. And would you say that your kids are all pretty well conversant and speak for themselves now? I mean, have they learned that?
Now they have learned.
They've learned. So they did learn.
Yes.
I mean, as you went through the process.
I'm not sure that they learned from us, but
but they learned it, and that's good.
They did learn it.
That's good.
They have a voice.
So I imagine when you are all together,
there's a lot of conversation.
You must have a lot of activity and a lot of noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that must be a good thing. You must like that.
It is a good thing. Yeah. So we all met. There were 26 of us here at Thanksgiving time, and that was very, very positive. Yeah.
And verbal.
And verbal, yes.
Yeah. You know, when you talk about 8 kids, they all have their own unique abilities. They have their own unique personality. They have their own unique skill, their interests, their desires, their goals. They're all different. Mm-hmm. And I know you said a little while ago that there was a little bit of grouping. There 2 or 3 of them might have something similar with each other, but overall, I would imagine all these kids, all 8 of them, had some area of uniqueness that you had to work with, that you had to develop, and that you had to help them develop. What would be an example of that? Which kid had a particular skill that you really did work and help him develop it?
Well, I'm not so sure we helped develop it. I think it was the child himself, and that was our oldest, Frederick, who was very, very interested in music and pursued it. All our kids were in band, except the youngest, and he decided that was enough music. But the oldest, well, his major was music at Northwestern, and he took advantage of lots of opportunities. He was given a lot of opportunities in high school because of his band teacher and because just because things came by as far as being in the Philharmonic, etc. So he did a lot, and he was very interested in music. But we had to kind of cool it just a little bit. Our houses are rather close, and
yes.
he would play scales, and finally this lady next door came over and said, you know, can't we do something about this? It's like Chinese torture. So we had to kind of set a limit. Okay, 8 p.m. cutoff. You know, things like that.
We have a grandson that plays the drums, and they were living at one time in an apartment with a common wall between them and another apartment, another family, and they had to do the very same thing. They had to work out a time together when he could play his drums. I think it was from 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 or something like that. After that, he couldn't play the drums because that was too noisy for the neighbors.
Right.
So they worked out a deal, and it worked out fine.
Yeah. And then the second son developed a dark room in the basement where we had some rain during the winter times, and I chose not to have a dryer because at that point in time, because I thought, I don't need a dryer. It's sunny most of the time. But when I did want it, I would hang clothes down the basement. And he took me upstairs and said, see the line over there in the attic? You can hang them up there.
He kicked you out.
Yes, he kicked me out.
out of his little boat, huh?
Yeah. So that's how that one worked. I have to tell you about this one. We had a son that was very interested in riding up on his bike to Yosemite. And so my husband agreed, and 2 other high school kids went too. My husband went along in the car with the gear and everything because they were going to camp out too. And one of the guys had problems. He was asthmatic, and he got up pretty high. And my husband said, come on, I'll take you up the rest of the way. He said, I don't deserve to go up the rest of the way. But anyway, Dwight would tease me and say, look what you allowed your kids to do, you know. But anyway, it was a fun thing for that son, and he likes riding, I think, on his bike even to this day. Yeah.
I think that's a very important story, because I think every kid has that, or should maybe have that opportunity to stretch themselves, to do something a little different, you know, a little bit beyond the normal. And as parents, it's good to encourage that.
Right.
But you do it at a great deal of anxiety and fear.
Right.
And so what's going to happen?
Right.
But for a kid, from the kid's perspective, that develops them, you know, personally and in their skill areas, and they'll always remember that. They'll appreciate that. They'll always remember the fact that you allowed that and you facilitated it. You know, in this case, Dwight, driving in back of them and basically protecting them, maybe. But, yeah.
Trying to make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
One of our daughters has a great interest in languages, and so that was Dwight's love. So they shared a common bond as far as languages and how they're developed, and she to this day volunteers her time to teach English as a second language to some Spanish speaking and other adults in a grade schools.
Yeah. So their interest areas kind of worked out occupationally then.
Yes.
As well. I mean, it kind
Right.
of tied together as to their
Right.
profession, and
Right. Yeah.
that's beautiful. Those are beautiful stories, actually. I bet you're proud of that. And you only gave us 3 or 4 of those stories, but you probably have 8 or more. Those that every kid had its moment in the sun.
Right.
know.
Uniqueness.
Yeah,
For sure.
That you facilitated so that their individualism, could be developed and fostered.
Right.
You got to think that way. We always, as parents, think, what's best for us and our comfort level and what we want to do and what we can do. But you really have to get out of your own skin and get into the skin of the child and say, what's best for this child? What can I do to really advance this child? That's what a parent has. Very self-sacrificing. As a parent, you have to be. And do this on behalf of the kids so that the kid really knows that he's honored and he's appreciated and he's valued and who he is going to be developed. And then from there they go on and develop themselves.
Right.
But you got to give them that push, that start, to go ahead and be that kind of a person. What do you think about the area of, I'll call it caring for each other? In every family we try to have our kids be thoughtful of each other and to help each other and to facilitate, kind of a mutual helping relationship. Sometimes it's the older one helping the younger one with homework. Sometimes helping each other doing chores. There are different ways of helping. But what you're doing in that, you're trying to teach the idea of offering help to other people. And how did you do that? How did you create a kind of a sense of looking out after each other and being of help to each other and benefit each other, as compared to just being selfish?
Well, I think there were just things that had to be done, in order to have a family. And there's the dishes that have to be done. There's the lawn that has to be done. There's just things that need to be done that we need to work on together or whatever. And so they were.
Did you have to assign tasks, or were the kids,
They were pretty
you
much.
have to beat them up?
They were pretty much aware that this is
Just
what they
expected.
needed to do. Yeah. And as a result, for my one son, he was working on the lawn, and at that point, Equifax was next door to us, sharing it with another organization. And this guy that was the boss saw my son and how meticulous he was. And so he said, how would you like to work for us? So he worked for them. 2 of our daughters worked there. And then later Frederick came home, and he also worked for them.
So it was an employment stream for the family.
He said, and Frederick said, they were good, but I can even be better.
But that all came from the idea that everybody has a chore.
Right.
Everybody pitches in.
Right.
Everybody helps. So Saturday must have been a work day for the family.
Oh, a lot of days were work days, and our kids had a lot of babysitting and that sort of thing. But that's how they bought their music lessons if they wanted it. That's how they bought their clothes. They were busy.
That's an important point.
They didn't get to do a lot of things, fun things that maybe other people were doing. They missed out on maybe going to McDonald's or something like that. They didn't know how to order food for a long time, till later in life.
Yeah, but I think that's what you have value there, is that you had jobs for the kids and you recognized their efforts, you paid them a little bit, and then they use that to advance their abilities and their skills and their knowledge.
Yeah, well, yeah, we didn't pay them much.
Well, nor should you, actually.
Yeah, right.
We're not talking about minimum wage.
It was mostly them earning. If you want your music lessons, you pay, and they did, and etc. And for our son James, because he was interested in all his camera stuff, and Horn's Photo was right down the street on Belmont, and so he frequented there often.
That was his little place to spend his few dollars, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, we're talking to Joan Acomb, mother of 8 children, and looking at the issues related to a large family. So thanks for joining me so far, and we're going to take a little break here now. Remember, it's Dr. Teach Me to Parent. We're basing it on my book, and if you don't have the book, I recommend that you pick it up at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or from my website, which will be shown on the screen, as well. So go get a cup of coffee, and come on back in just a couple minutes, and we'll pick up the next segment there with our guest, Joan Acomb. See you in a bit.
Dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com. Fresno Rescue Mission's Rescue the Children program is a protected, secure environment providing emergency and long-term services to women at risk, abused, homeless, previously incarcerated, and women with children. The community provides women and their children a place to get away from destructive lifestyles, offering a place to heal, learn, and grow. Give to the Fresno Rescue Mission today.
Opportunity isn't always given a door to knock on, so we built one. The door to our kids' futures is often crowded by temptation and misdirection, making it difficult for them to reach their full potential. But once they enter that door, our club door, inside is a place of hope and opportunity. The second home for the nearly 4 million kids we serve every year after school and in the summer. Inside our doors, youth development professionals and mentors provide the guidance, support, and encouragement needed for every kid and teen in an enriching and safe environment, no matter their circumstances. Boys and Girls Club set the standard as the #1 advocate for youth during the out-of-school time. We assure success is within reach for all kids and teens in America, with club members on track to graduate from high school with a plan for the future, demonstrating good character, and living a healthy lifestyle. We're leading America's youth, fostering success well beyond the basketball court through hundreds of programs, from robotics to the culinary arts, providing unlimited opportunities for those seeking. This hope and opportunity builds character, creates leaders, and helps all kids define their future. Ensuring young people find their passions, reach for their dreams, and achieve their full potential. Much can be found inside our 4,000 doors nationwide and on military installations around the world. Boys and Girls Clubs is the opportunity for all kids, and our doors are open. Great futures start here.
Satellite television television, transforming the Middle East through hope in Jesus Christ. Sat7USA.org.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, thanks for coming back and joining us now for our last segment of our show today. How do you live in the context of a large family? How do you parent a large family? Our guest being Joan Acomb, a mother of 8 children, and been sharing her heart and sharing her experiences with us as to what it's like to parent this kind of a family context. And I was just asking Joan during the break here as to what other people thought of her and of her husband for having 8 children. I mean, was there some kind of a admiration that people had for you, that you took on this responsibility and fulfilled it? Or was there some disdain actually towards you for having a large family? What was the attitude of other people?
Well, it's kind of interesting because a neighbor man said to my husband, "Shame on you for having a large family." And my husband said, "Well, at least we're married." So I think also I was surprised one day when I overheard a person saying, "They just have too many children." And I thought, well, that's strange. It just, I was amazed in a way. And again, my husband would say, well, which one would I give away? I mean, they're all precious. We need to, just appreciate them where they are in life, even through struggles, etc. We've had some things that have pulled us together, some mental difficulties that were extremely hard for the individual as well as for every one of us. Mm-hmm. And then we've had the physical problems of a couple of cancers. One of the children had an acoustic neuroma later in life here. Mm-hmm. Just different situations that brought us together. We could see, we're not going to live forever. We have problems, and they kind of brought us together too. Yeah,
problems do. Mm-hmm. They can separate, but they can also bond you together. And I liked your comment there about, sure you have children, 8 of them, and they're all different and they're all unusual. They give you problems at times, and there are times you'd like to give them away. But they're still precious. That was your word.
Yes.
You still see each one as having something to contribute to you personally.
That's right. And also they're contributing to life in general, to mankind in their different positions. And I find it amazing because everyone is on a different track. And what is success? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's defined differently by everybody, and every kid has a different level of success. And you may see a kid as successful, but they may not.
Right.
Like you said, that one child had a little confusion at one point in time as not seeing themselves as being very smart, mm-hmm. and maybe not seeing themselves as being very successful, mm-hmm. when in fact was smart and probably was successful.
Very much so.
And became successful.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So kids have their views. You have to kind of challenge them. You have to re-educate them. You have to rethink it with them, don't you? Mm-hmm. It's a constant job. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody said the parent is the first teacher their child ever has. It's probably well said to say that the parent is the best teacher that a child ever has, and it's the most timely teacher that a kid ever has, because you're there when bad stuff happens, and you can make a point out of it. You can teach from it.
Yes.
It's a teaching moment. You probably had many of those.
It seemed like it.
Maybe more than you wanted.
It still seems like it.
Maybe more than you ever wanted to have. But I mean, those are teaching moments that we all, as parents, have to seize and take advantage of and make work.
Right.
Say one other question. That is, when you have kids, they rebel. Kids have their own points of view. They want to do this. They don't want to do that. They don't want to do what the whole family does. They want to do something different. They don't want to do what dad does. They want to do what mother does. I mean, kids have this kind of sense of they're independent, and they're becoming more and more independent, and they put up resistance. We call it rebellion. And sometimes that really is extreme. They become very, very antisocial and criminal in the rebellion. And other times it's just a matter of opposition or back talk or some kind of negativity, if you will. What was it like? You must have had a lot of that. 8 kids? If everyone went through a rebellious time, you really had you had gray hair.
Well, I think probably, and they wouldn't mind me saying this because it was true, probably the oldest and the youngest challenged me most. The youngest, it was like when he was 2, picking up toys, doing different things like that. And I can remember struggling one day with him as far as picking up toys. And I didn't like myself, and so I didn't want to do anything bad. I said, all right, we're going to pray about this. And so we prayed and finished, or I prayed. And I said, okay, pick up your toys. And he picked up every last one of them, So, and then the older one had his problems, and I think, again, that he really needed to be heard. And some of it was probably on our own parenting, our lack of ability. Where were you in '68, for instance? I didn't have the tools, or we didn't have the time.
That's right.
Time and tools.
None of us as parents were educated to be a parent.
Right.
Still,
Yes.
that's the case, if you will.
And it could have been a lot better. And so he was right as far as how he felt, and maybe some of the others feel that way, but it's done and over. You did what you did, and but there's value here, and that is this: rebellion, when it's extreme, is destructive to everybody, and it's destructive to the child's future. When they get into antisocial and criminal behavior, it's a whole different matter. Their future is destroyed. And it
to a large
was not
extent,
anything like
that. But when a child is rebellious in just words and just kind of a different point of view and his opinion and not wanting to do certain things, like the example you gave, there's goodness to that, because they learn to be assertive. They learn to be strong personalities. They learn to stand up for themselves. They learn to negotiate. They learn to debate.
Yes.
I mean, those are skills that we want to develop within the social abilities of a child. So as a parent, you have to kind of look at it in the sense of, if it's extreme, do something about it and get that stopped. If it's within the moderate range, kind of work with it and use it as a teaching moment and allow a certain amount of that, because good can come from that. I don't know if you thought of it that way.
I hadn't.
At the time, you probably
no.
Pretty frustrated.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you prayed with this child over this matter about picking up toys. How did you bring about a value in that area of your life, kind of a religious value? You talked about your family having an education value, but you also had a religious value, a spiritual value. How did you foster that?
Well, we did meet at the table, in the evening, because that was the time when most of our family was there, unless somebody had some music engagement or something like that. So we did have a form of devotions, and we talked about values there. Yeah. So, and that was, pretty much on a nightly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kids were all involved in a church, all involved in a youth type of a program of some kind to help that spiritual value being developed?
Yeah, they were. Some of them were not real active, like when they got to be high school age, one of them chose to work in the library, you know. So at least they were doing something.
Something within the context of the church.
Right.
Which is, I mean, that teaches spiritual values. I mean, that's part of it. And, you know, I think every family has to kind of look at that issue. You know, how do we bring about the values that we as parents have and believe in? Education is one. I mean, how do you foster an educational value and in making education important? You know, how do you foster kind of religious value, making sure that's important to you, important to the kids, and important as a family? You know, how do you develop kind of values regarding occupation? You know, that you work and you advance yourself and you work not in low levels of job, but you work upward and you move into the professions and you know, so on. I mean, that's a value, and you have to have a way of strategizing. How do you develop that? How do you teach that? Encourage it. I hope you did. I assume you did.
Tried.
I mean, all your kids are working, and
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, I mean, you must have created a kind of a work value, if you call it that.
Very much so, yeah. And Dwight would say, well, if things don't work out with what you intended to do, you can always work with your hands, which he did himself. He chose to. So he had numerous skills, and some of our kids have that skill. Some of them wish they had that skill.
Some of their wives, I'm sure, wish they had that skill too.
Yeah. And we were kind of like the shoemaker whose kids didn't
have shoes.
Because some of our house things, initially he did what needed to be done initially, but then after that was it. You know?
Yeah. Well, anyway, it was good talking today. This has been a good conversation.
Yeah.
And I hope for you out there that the large family is a valued family, an appreciated family, and we learn, you know, from each other. And if you have a large family nearby in your neighborhood, learn from them and engage them in conversation. We're going to take a little small break here now, and I'll come back for a closing comment. So just hang on. We'll be out just for a very short break with our commercials, okay?
Christian Writers Seminar at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church on Saturday, February 10th, 2018.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, this is our last little bit here in our last segment, and we're talking with Joan Acomb, a mother of 8 children. And we've been having a great conversation about what it's like to raise a complex family of 8 children. I have one last question for you, Joan, and then we'll wrap it up, and that is hospitality. Your home, obviously, with these kids, had a lot of people coming and going. And with you as a parent and having interests of your own, and knowing a lot of people, you must have had a lot of people coming and going.
Yes, it was very, very interesting. My mother-in-law came and lived with us for several years until she died.
That was your 9th child.
Yeah. And that was a very precious time. And then after that, it was a little house out and back, and we kind of have used it as a missionary post. And so we had many different missionaries come and live. Or several, I should say. And then One of my daughters, who was going to Fresno State at the time, brought home this kid who was not living in a good environment, and he was a Christian, and he moved in that evening and lived with us for a short time. And we've had numerous people like that. We had a friend of our oldest that lived with us for a short time too, several months.
And they all bring their own contribution to your family.
Yes, yes. So it was very, very interesting because this one guy came and lived with us this short time, and financially we weren't doing really well. It was like 79, 80 era. And he said he would go and buy a gallon of milk. And he said to the others, the kids, well, you know, you could buy a gallon of milk too sometime. And they did. So
that was what they ate for the meal, huh?
Yeah. No, there was always plenty of food, you know. I mean, it's amazing what you can do. You can cook up a lot of spaghetti. You can make a lot of beans.
Yeah, we had water to the soup and so on, right?
Yeah. We had one gal that came over from next door. She was the only child, and one day I'd gone somewhere and left kids in charge, and she came over too, and they got in a big fight, and she went home in a tiff, and I felt so bad for the mother, so I went over and explained, and she said, I am so glad. I'm so glad, because she has thought that coming from a large family was just so ideal, and that
Hey, Joan, thanks for joining us today. That was you added a great contribution to our program today. And let me give you the tip for the day as a parent, okay? When you get to the end of your rope, and we've all been there, when you get to the end of the rope, remember that it has two ends. The other end is anchored. The other end is anchored at the top. Just always remember that, okay? There's always an end of the rope experience that we get, but it's anchored at the top. So maybe that'll give you a little hope today as well as you proceed forward as a parent of your family and do it well and do it right. Thanks for joining us today, and bye for now.
CentralValleyTalk.com